I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but that's what I did because I was sitting there with a crochet hook full of crochet hook, loops, and I was just like, I don't know how to do this. Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 188 in the series. I know I misnumbered the last episode. I'll go back and fix it, I promise. Welcome back to the dining room. It's lovely to see all of you. It is spring break here, and we're actually getting some spring. So we've got a little bit of bird action, a little bit of flower action, a little bit of sunshine. So I hope if you are in or near my part of the world, you're also getting a little bit of spring finally. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. This is a cast about design, modification, and garments mostly. So we are going to talk all about Henleys today, as you requested. So there we go. And if you're coming back, it's lovely to see you. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all the comments, the emails, Ravelry group, all of you. It's just great to hang out with you, and I appreciate the chance to talk to so many of you on our Saturday Zoom. And yeah, we've a nice little community here. So welcome back. Today, as promised, well, kind of not as promised, I asked on the last episode if anybody was interested in a Henley episode, because I'm like a huge fan of Henleys. So many of you were like, the overwhelming response was like, yes, we want Henleys. So I have a Henley episode for you. I also have some modifications that I've been doing to Spencer's Downtown Hoodie by Tori. So I'll talk about that. And perhaps most exciting, for those of you who have been watching and listening to the book saga for many years at this point, know that I've been writing a book about wool and chemistry, and we finally have a cover, and I'm seeing first pages this week. So the launch date for that book is official now. It is going to be the first week of September, and I will be starting to do little bits and pieces of fun stuff about the book as we get closer and closer. If you do want to see the cover, I will have put it up here so that you can see. It is bright, it is fun. They used yarn for the font. I am super excited about it. You can pre-order it now over on Amazon. If you feel like pre-ordering it, go for it. But like I said, it'll be out in September. I will keep letting you know when things get closer, and we will start doing little segments on the podcast about the book. So yay, that's the really exciting news. And I'm supposed to tell you where you can find me. Of course, that is Knitting the Stash just about everywhere, and I think that is everywhere at this point. Ravelry, Instagram, here on YouTube, over on the main blog and website, which is knittingthestash.com, and that's where you can find my online classes, the Flock Farm Yarn Shop, all the goodies. So Knitting the Stash, if you need to find me on the webs, that's where I am. I think we'll just jump right into sweaters. Let's do some Henley talk, shall we? Okay, so on the last episode, at the very end, I was bemoaning the fact that the Henley, which is a funky, awesome, fundamentally great sweater style, is often the purview of like men and babies, or little kids and men. Like it's one of those sweater styles that women wear them, and designers are designing them for women. I have plenty of examples for you, but they tend to cluster around the menfolk and the children. And I was joking last time that we should take back the Henley. And in my search, I have noticed that a few more designers are designing Henleys nowadays, which makes me very happy. I love the Henley. Now, the Henley is, let's talk about like what a Henley is. Basically, let's talk about what it's not first. It's not a V-neck. It's not a polo. It's not a shawl collar. It's not a fake Henley. It's not necessarily asymmetrical. It's like, for me, a Henley is like a very specific thing, and it's this. So it is a split down the middle of a sweater, whether you're working at top down or bottom up, and you bound off some stitches here in the middle. So you're basically creating a little bit of a square, like a little rectangle in the center of your sweater. And then the sides are straight up and down. So you're not creating like a V necessarily. You're not shaping this part. It's weird, right? You think like you need shaping there. And probably some really good designers are designing Henleys with some shaping and a little extra this and that and flair and whatever. But like a traditional Henley is very much straight lines to a flat straight line here where the stitches have been bound off. And usually, I think traditionally you're supposed to have at least 2 buttons. We can do whatever we want with our Henleys. I'm just telling you the traditional style of Henleys. So traditionally you'd have at least 2 buttons, sometimes more, and you just have this kind of rectangular chunk out of the front of your sweater that you then add button bands to, right? You add one band, you pick up stitches on this side, you pick up stitches and knit your button band this way, pick up stitches on this side, knit your button band this way, and one of them gets attached down at the bottom, and then the other one gets attached. So you get this little fold thing right here so that the buttons go together. And it's a really simple style. I think that's one of the reasons maybe that designers stay away from it. It has also, like I said, been so masculinized and so childized. Like it's not as often that you find them for women's fashion. Now, that's not totally true because there are plenty of designers who are working with Henleys. It's just that if you look up Henley in a fashion magazine or like on a fashion internet site or something like that, you're more likely to find men's wear than you are to find women's wear. And if you look up the history of the Henley, that kind of starts to become clear why that is. So the history of the Henley, as far as I can tell from scouring the internets, is that it started actually with men's long underwear. And that's partially why it's a men's thing, a menswear thing. So I'll put some pictures up here, but there's some great 19th century images of men in like full jumpsuit, long underwear. And basically they have a button band that runs from their upper chest all the way down to their crotch. So you could take off the top part, you have a little more access to the body, and eventually they kind of split. So you have the lower part being called long underwear and then the upper part being called a Henley, but they were designed in a similar way. We had a button band that would run a certain distance on the top of your men's underwear, you know, shirt, long underwear shirt. Now they got called Henleys in part because, and this is what I've been able to find, there was the site of the Royal Regatta was in the 1830s was in a place called Henley-on-Thames in England. And so Henley gets attached to the Royal Henley Regatta and to the shirt. Because I guess the rowers in the regatta started wearing Henleys and they liked the kind of like freedom of movement that the shirt gave them, I guess, the style of shirt. So that's one of the origins for the name. And because it was associated with like long underwear and then sports, Henleys are often associated with both of those things. Like you'll see them in the movies. Men will be wearing them as kind of like these undershirts or as kind of sportswear. Then you get the polo, and the polo has like the Henley cut in the front, button bands, and then you get the placket, and then you get the collar, the Peter Pan kind of collar added to it. I don't consider those like traditional Henleys. They have a similar style, but they also have that collar. So anyway, the polo is related to the Henley. And the shawl collar is also related to the Henley because to make a shawl collar, one of the ways you can do it is to basically create a Henley cut and then you and then you do your short rows to create your shawl collar. It's a little more complicated. It gives a similar kind of look, but without the button band usually. Anyway, these are asides. So the Henley was made kind of famous because it showed up in the movies so often. Not only the Royal Regatta in the 1830s, but it started showing up in the movies a lot. You know, famous actors have been seen wearing the Henley style in one way or another, or stylists got involved. But women were wearing Henleys pretty early on. Some of the images I was able to find on Ravelry and some of the early patterns were from, say, the 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now, supposedly they get kind of more popular for women in the 70s and 80s, but I was able to find them all the way back to the 30s. And you could probably find them earlier than that, potentially. So the Henley has a long history, and it does have a history of being mostly about menswear, but women did get involved by the early 20th century, the mid 20th century. So the Henley is something that I feel very comfortable saying, let's take it back. That doesn't mean that men can't wear it anymore. It's just that I love Henleys and I think more women should wear Henleys. I think it's a very flattering look for a lot of people. And it's a really easy construction to do. So if you are working on a sweater and you're, early in your knitting journey and you're like, I really want to mod this and do something cool, a Henley can be an interesting mod for a sweater, whether you're doing top down or bottom up, because it is such a simple thing to do. You're not adding shaping necessarily for the most basic Henley. You're just cutting out a bunch of stitches. So if you're working from the bottom up, you would just bind off a bunch of stitches and start working just left side, right side. If you're working fronts, or even if you're working in the round, you could work it like a cardigan basically. So you just work around back to where the button band is going to be and keep going. If you're working top down, say on a crew neck sweater and you wanted to make it a Henley, It's a little bit trickier because you're gonna get into some short row shaping probably right away. But basically you would just treat it like a cardigan, right? So like converting a crew neck to a cardigan would be a similar process. Or if you just have a cardigan and you wanted to turn the cardigan into a Henley and it's a top down, you could do that really easily because you just stop your button band and you put everything together and you start working in the round after you've knit however long you want your button band to be, and then you've created a Henley. So there you go. Henleys are easy to add. It's like one of the first, I feel like it was one of the first design mods that I tried on maybe a mini sweater or on, oh, it was on my my Monique sweater that was a combo mashup, Franken mashup of a bunch of different sweaters. I ended up going with a shawl collar, but I used the Henley kind of shaping to create the rectangle before I did the shawl collar. Anyway, it's an early, easy, interesting modification to do, and it gets you a really different looking sweater depending on what you're going for. Now, Henleys can be long, they can be short. I brought a couple examples in here today. They can have buttons, they cannot. I think technically they should have buttons if they're Henleys because tradition, I don't know, what do you think? But a shorter Henley is like this one, you know, it could end, they're really short ones. And I've put together basically over on Ravelry, what do you call it, a bundle, I think, and I'll be able to share the link to the bundle below in the show notes. So this is a bundle of tons of different examples of Henleys for women with long and short button plackets. So you can kind of choose. The shortest ones I've seen are really literally like 2 buttons. They're very short, very high up in the top. I think Jared Flood of Brooklyn Tweed had an early design that had a women's Henley that had like, you know, literally 2 buttons, very short, but it adds a nice flair to the design. Then you get kind of the medium ones. This is the Echo Lodge by Mara Kirk, which I love. It's just a funky sweater. But it has a kind of medium length placket. And then I also brought my Nacra out here. This is, who is this? This is Emily Louis. And this one has a much longer placket that goes almost down to like halfway down the sweater. You can see it like goes maybe to like right above, or right where your ribs kind of break to your diaphragm, if that makes sense. I've also seen Henleys and I've included them in our list. That one has a placket that goes all the way down to like your belly button almost. So very long placket, but still technically a Henley. It doesn't go all the way to the bottom. It's not a cardigan. So I put together that list for you to see. And if you're interested in knitting a Henley, if you're interested in knitting a Henley, you have lots of different options here. Some of the newer ones are Trinity by Libby Johnson. Let's see, Albina McLaughlin came out with Inver in 2021. And there was one other sort of newish one. Oh, Only Lovers Left by Sara Ottosson is another one that just came out in 2026. So there are some new, if you're looking for something like styled in the mid 2020s, there are some new ones that have been coming out. But you can also look back to some clever old ones like the 3-in-1 by Alpha Knits, which I absolutely love as just a cool garment, is a Henley. The Tove shirt by Oddrow. Some of the older ones like Ripple by Kim Hargraves is a cool Henley. What was some of the other ones? The Old River Road by Kay Hopkins. That's actually a newer one, I think. So there's tons of really cool Henleys out there in the world, and they don't take much. You don't have to do much to add a Henley styling to a sweater. So you could almost take, you could take a lot of sweaters that have a crew neck or cardigans and turn them into Henleys really easily. So this list is by no means the only list that you could make of Henleys, because you can modify your own garments to have Henley styling very easily. Yeah, okay, so that's the Henley for you. We had some fun with that. And like I said, I will post a link to the Ravelry bundle in the show notes just in case you want to go check it out. Okay, quick costume change, because now I want to move on to talking about Spencer's downtown hoodie. And I popped it over on the mannequin. It obviously doesn't fit the mannequin. Spencer is a little bit of a different size than I am. And so his sweater is, I think I'm making this one to be about 44 inches around the chest. So it doesn't quite fit my mannequin, but that's okay. We can still imagine it. And one of the cool things I will say, this is the downtown hoodie by Tori. And one of the cool things about this pattern is that I do think it is it can be very easily made into a unisex kind of pattern. Like anyone could wear this pattern. And I'm not even thinking that I did much to tweak the upper portion in terms of styling. I just knit a larger size. I'm obviously working in a different yarn. This is Lore by the Fiber Company. And so a slightly different gauge, I think. And I deepened, is that a word? I deepened the yoke just a little bit to make sure that it would sit right on Spencer's upper chest, upper body, and his shoulders. So those are the only mods I think I did to sizing of this sweater. Something to pay attention to if you are using like a pattern that is primarily intended for women and you're thinking about men. You want to think not only about your overall style and fit and ease and things like that, but also like yoke depth might be slightly different if you're going for a men's version versus a women's version. Like my yoke, I don't know. I mean, if someone, I guess it would be the conversion of like if a woman is a 44 to 46 inch chest, how deep is the yoke? And you can look that kind of thing up, and then you can compare it to whether or not men's yokes are that deep. I didn't do that before this. I just went from person to person. So like I looked at the pattern, then I looked at the person, and I did the measurements. That's just kind of how I work. I don't really work from standards as much if I can help it, because they're usually not right because they're such averages. Anyway, that's an aside. So other mods I did on this sweater so far, I did not do the stripes across the main body, just like I did with my version of it. I didn't include those. I did include the striping on the sleeve, but only 3 instead of 5 or 6. And I went with this, this is a skeins yarn. This is it looks almost like a periwinkle. I knit another sweater out of this and I had it kind of left over, and I was trying to find a complementary color that would work with this beautiful gray. That's the Fiber Company. And yeah, so it's all 100% wool. This is just New Zealand wool, and I think this is British wool. They're blending. And I really do like this color match. There's something about this kind of periwinkle going with the gray that's just, I don't know, I really like it. Everybody has their own taste, but I checked with Spencer and he thought it was pretty cool too. So we went with the periwinkle, 3 stripes. I think I'll do 3 stripes on the other sleeve. He'll get a hood. But one of the big mods I did, aside from the split hem, is that I added some distressed kind of lines in the back. And I talked about this a couple episodes ago. So I saw a really cool sweater, and I'll put it here so you can see it as well. And it was a free pattern, and one of the things that the sweater did was to add these really cool vertical stripes to a sweater. Now I had been knitting Aldous, which I'm wearing right now, and Aldous has 1 purl stripe down the back. It also has faux seams, so I think you can see this here. It has faux seams on the sides and under the arms here, which is just a purl stitch running all the way down, but it has one right down the back. So I was kind of inspired by that and then by this other pattern that I saw, and decided that what I wanted to do for Spencer's sweater, with his approval of course, was to add some kind of distressed marks down the back, just some vertical stripes. So I added, this one is a double actually, so that's why it looks a little extra wide. I added them kind of regularly throughout the back. And the idea is that what you do is go back in later with a crochet hook and you crochet in your knit stitches so that you can get these vertical stripes without having to do, intarsia or any other kind of like bells and whistles, jumping through hoops. You're just adding a crochet chain that's linked on the inside. So I'll show you here. I started the crochet chain down here. I know I picked up a crochet hook. It's amazing. And it's not perfect, but I did it anyway. So I picked up these stitches here, and you can see each stitch gets a little hook in the chain. I haven't woven in the ends yet or anything, but I wanted you to be able to see what's going on here. So I did them with different lengths. I think I'm not so super good on the sizes of crochet hooks yet. I want to say I used like a 4 or like a 5. I don't know what that even means. It wasn't like a tiny one and it wasn't a huge one. It was about the right size for creating the stitches that I needed. Sorry, I'm not a crocheter. I would like to learn to become one, but right now my granny squares are absolutely lopsided. So this I can do almost with a lot of like sticking my tongue out and trying to like figure out how to do it with my motor control, but so far so good. I mean, my tension isn't perfect on these, but since they're meant to be a little bit distressed, I'm not too worried about it. So there's a shorter one here, longish, and then I tried to offset them, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to see them. Yeah, this one starts here and ends here. This one is a double, and it kind of runs this long. Then there's one over here that runs in this pattern, and another tiny one over here. As I was adding them, I had a few to begin with. Obviously they start at different points. I wanted them staggered. And it's at a certain point I realized that if I had one over here, I needed to add one over here. So I dropped down and changed my knit stitches to purl stitches in just a little segment of it to make sure that I could get the same look across the entire back. Because like I said, I didn't sit there and plot this out on graph paper. I wanted it to look a little organic. So that's why they're, you know, staggered, different sizes, different heights, different lengths. But I think it's just gonna add a little bit of kind of funkiness to the back of this sweater, and Spencer seems up for that kind of thing. So he always needs a little something special added to his sweater, and I think this will be the something special. Now we decided just to do it on the back, not on the front. The front looks very plain. It'll have its hood, it'll have its stripes, you know, that's the deal. But when you turn around, you're gonna get quite a cool effect with this sweater. And I can totally imagine this kind of thing being worked into a bunch of different patterns. You could work it into the yoke of your sweater, you could work it into the sleeves, anywhere that you wanted to add a little bit of color. You could do multiples right next to each other of different heights or different lengths. And that would just be really cool, right? Like you can imagine a yoke that would have some of that. If you wanted to do different colors rather than just 2 or 3 color work, you could have multiple rainbow colors by just doing this technique and bringing in different colors in the sweater. And then yeah, you have ends to weave in, but you also have a really cool effect, and you didn't have to do intarsia or work in individual colors as you were going along in the yoke with the shaping and things like that. You just have to add a purl stitch vertically where you want to add these crochet chains. So I don't know, I think it's a really cool technique. Like I said, I will link to the pattern that was the inspiration, and in that pattern, the designer, who has a bunch of tutorials up on YouTube about what to do and how to do these stripes. One of the things that I didn't see covered by her, and I was a little bit like, oh, what do I do? When I got to the end of the crochet chain and there was nowhere else to go, I was like, I'm sitting there with a crochet like loop, and I'm like, it was almost like back when I was a kid and I learned to knit, but I didn't learn to bind off. And I was like, oh no, like, what do I do? So there was no instruction. I just decided to like, I think what I did is I pulled through one final loop and then I just pulled it through, like, you know, pulled the loop out basically, and then took a tapestry needle and sewed the end back in across another stitch so that it's tacked in the back effectively. And then I will just weave in the end. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do, but that's what I did, because I was sitting there with a crochet hook full of crochet hook, you know, loops, and I was just like, I don't know how to do this. Yeah, that was my ad lib. So there you go. So Spencer's Downtown Hoodie is coming along. It's taken me quite a while because this is a pretty fine yarn. I think I've been working on size 4s for the most part. And, you know, it's just a slightly larger size than my sweater, so it takes a little bit longer. One of the other things I added was a split hem, because Spencer likes his split hems like I do. So I used the Aldous split hem, which I absolutely love. Isabell Kraemer, and I think Albina McLaughlin's, some of her patterns do this as well. It's a beautiful way of doing a split hem. So instead of just doing the split, you actually pick up some stitches and pull basically knit an extra set of stitches in front of, like, so you bring your back stitches, you're picking up a few stitches, and then your back flap of the split hem is a little bit wider around. It curves around a little bit and covers over part of the front. And I'm sure y'all have seen this before as a technique, but it just as a reminder in case you're doing split hems, this is a really nice one. I love the way Isabell Kraemer does it in Aldous, so that's a good inspiration pattern for you if you're looking for a way to do this, but you could probably also look it up on the YouTubes and see some people doing it this way. The extra flap is just, it's a nice touch. It just kind of closes in that whole split hem thing and just, it's just nice. It's just one of those nice little design details. You're gonna love Isabell Kraemer for that. So thank you, Isabell Kraemer. So interestingly, this Downtown Hoodie has taken on a little bit of the Aldous sweater, which I'm wearing right now, and a little bit of that other vertically striped pattern that I will link in the show notes. So it's Yeah, it's doing what I like to do with sweaters, which is just do some modifications to them. Make them your own. Do some fun things with them, because otherwise, I mean, you know, working with a pattern and doing what the designers, you know, expecting you to do, totally fine. And you will come out with ideally a really beautiful garment that you love. But if you just feel like the urge to do something different, here's your permission. Do what you want. Change your collar to a Henley, change your cardigan to a Henley. You add some stripes to your sweater, change the hem, do what you want. It's your piece of clothing. So I hope you will enjoy that knitting process yourself and come away with something that you really love. Yeah, that's almost it for today. So thanks for hanging out with me, and thank you. I want to say a big thank you to the Patreons, the podcast producers, and that is Tony, Laura, Mary, Bethany, Laura, Nargis, Lenore, Jennifer, and Kendra. Appreciate you. Thanks for supporting the podcast. I'm going to try to get back in here more often again. The book work has taken a little bit of time away from the rest of life right now. But yeah, I'm going to try to get in here with some segments for you about the book and the launch date in September. I'm so excited. I hope y'all are excited for this book as well. So I will see you in a couple weeks. Happy knitting in the meantime. Take care. Bye-bye.